Great. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on today's webinar. Today, we're going to be talking to Paul, who's very kindly joined us, who's a finance director, and Rachel Webb-Wiles, who is one of our TLD GCs. And we're going to be talking about the hidden risk in legal risk in SMEs. And the relationship between finance leaders and an outsourced GC. So without further ado, I'll introduce myself. I'm Sarah Clark. I'm Chief Revenue Officer at the Legal Director. Paul, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself too.
Okay, so I'm Paul Brown. I'm Finance Director and Company Secretary of Rudolph and Helmond in the UK.
Brilliant. Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel Webb-Wiles and I'm a fractional General Counsel or Legal Counsel working through the Legal Director, and I have supported Paul and Rudolph and Helmond as their fractional Legal Counsel sit for the last 18 months. I think it's about that. But time has flown during that time.
They say it does when you're having fun. Exactly. So the reason we're all here today is because research shows that in 2024, UK SMEs lost an estimated £13.6 billion where legal issues weren't being addressed. So not just dramatic disputes, but everyday risk just going unnoticed under the radar. So Rachel, when we talk about that hidden legal risk, what does that actually mean in practice for SME businesses?
Well, I think in practice, hidden legal risk is the stuff that doesn't look like a problem until it is a problem, which I know sounds really obvious, but I think it's those operational blind spots where risks accumulate over time. So sort of three key areas I would see are sort of risks in everyday processes. Maybe there's inconsistent processes. Maybe there's secondly, sort of a lack of documentation. So for example, no written variations or no written processes. And the third one, I think, where you've kind of got risks which maybe are legacy behaviours or you've inherited risk, possibly through maybe you've taken on employees or they've TP'd in and you've got sort of legacy risks sort of sitting in the business. And I think, SMEs can be vulnerable mainly because they move fast. They're really agile. They make decisions really quickly. And because they are growing at pace, sometimes those informal processes and those hidden risks can accumulate, particularly if there's no in-house legal. So I think that's how I would define hidden legal risk.
Yeah, I think that's right, because they're so busy, and this isn't an unusual thing. This is the majority of businesses I think we come across. They're so busy doing the main thing, which is doing their business, that they're
Absolutely.
not always focused on papering everything, governance, all of those other kind of things that they perceive as, potentially things that might slow them down, and they just don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to be thinking about those things all the time. I think for those who've joined us on the webinar, we're going to be running a bit of a poll as to, and people who are much cleverer than me at tech are going to be putting that poll up on the screen, about where legal risk sits in your businesses, just so that we can get a kind of understanding of that and circulate some material after the webinar. Paul, really kind of you to have joined us and to kind of share your first-hand experience. You're a finance leader in a fast-moving business. What I'm keen to kind of understand from you is that kind of before and after, life before, life after the kind of fractional legal counsel joins you in your business. Can you paint a bit of a picture for us of what your everyday role involves?
Sure, sorry, no worries. Competing demands and competing priorities across areas. So fortunately for me, I don't just have a classic FD job. It does encompass everything in terms of the business operates and it needs to run and grow. So on a typical day, there could well be within the whole day a demand from commercially from a tender that needs to be submitted on that day to a current customer that has some questions across their own pricing, to an operational issue that may have come up during the day that needs dealing with, to a shareholder call, to a bank call, I do head up a number of departments as well, so finance, compliance, IT, HR, for probably the best part now, about 500, 600 people. So
wow,
yeah, and that's of full-time staff. So you add the agency on into that as well. Now you're into sort of 800 people at all one time. So there are competing demands for my time, and for sure. That has been helped enormously from Rachel coming in and helping 18 months ago, because that whole legal piece, which could come from customer contracts, from employer issues where we needed to imply compliance, from internal compliance as well. I just had to be the only person to remember that. And now it's not like that. So now actually Rachel will catch it. I know we will all get it done, and we always used to get it done, but those balls would go lower to the floor and I'd come in and catch them like that because I get them and I never let them go. Whereas now I can get them about there, right? Or I just let them that, and I know Rachel will take that final piece before it hit the floor, and it'll never hit the floor. And that's the whole thing. And there's a reassurance about that, there's a confidence about that. And so there's that angle that helps me, but also Rachel has embedded herself into our organisation, and we really see her as part of our leadership team. We really do, because she came in from the start and delivered, and then gave us more and more of her personality as well as the delivery, and eventually then she starts to then come into our gang. And she starts to behave and think like us, and we all go out, and celebrate when we want to, and it's just the most fantastic thing that's happened in terms of being able for Rachel to work with us, know how James, our CEO, thinks, and Carolina, who's also our business executive, the three leadership people. She knows how we all work. What she also has gone in a level so that it doesn't just route through me. So the people that I'm responsible for, she has relationships with them. So now it doesn't always be about, Paul, how's the GDPR project? Or Paul, what's going on with the TUPE from the transfer over of the contract? Or Paul, what's going on with the tender support for this new piece of work? She will talk to those individual people, and then we'll have a catch up the week after. So, and because we've grown across that period of time, in terms of where we are, we've pretty much doubled our base over the last 18 months, right, in terms of headcount and people. So what's happened is new noise has been created to replace what Rachel has already taken out. So I'm still as busy as ever.
Yeah.
It's still as crazy as ever. But this new noise, and that new noise I'm operating on, because it's part of the growth, it's part of the funding, it's part of talking to shareholders, it's about talking to new customers, it's about being visible at external events. Whereas Rachel now has taken on what was distracting me and taken that on so that I know on a quick catch up where we are on major projects. So that's probably a bit of a verbose answer, but that's the reality.
No, it's a great answer. I got a real sense from you that it sort of feels like your shoulders have dropped. It sort of feels like you were carrying the weight of the world, the weight of the business on your shoulders. And we talk about CFOs wearing many hats. You were wearing the people hat and the ops hat and all of these other hats where everything ultimately, the buck stopped with you. You've now got, as you described it, someone catching those things for you. So I thought that was actually a really brilliant explanation of it. And just practically speaking, this is in a few days a month, isn't it? The arrangement between you and Rachel is just you say she feels like an embedded member of your team, but this is Rachel. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about the kind of practicalities of the engagement?
Yes, so I started off, I think, at the beginning, Paul, and it was sort of a 2 days a month arrangement, wasn't it? Sort of across the month as and when Paul needed it. And that's sort of grown exponentially to sort of 4 days a month now. I think as the business has grown, like Paul said, the business has effectively doubled in size. My sort of right at the beginning was the big tender for the new customer, which Rudolph and Hellman won, and at that point in time it was like absolutely all hands on deck, wasn't it, basically, in terms of we need to make this happen and we're going to make it happen fast. So it is growing to 4 days, but I mean Paul can talk to this, but I really do try and make myself available whenever Rudolph and Hellman need me. So that time will flex up and down. It might be at any time of day on whatever day the business needs me or what those demands are, really. So I think it works.
That's it. It is that. I don't see it as days. We just see it as it happens. It's just there. It's magic. Whenever they need it, whenever Rachel we need her, she's there, and it doesn't matter whatever time. She's there. There are examples which we can share perhaps later about how we've been able to do that. Even when she was on holiday and I was on holiday, we needed something happening.
Or you're both on holiday.
And we're both on holiday, and there was something was going to fall in the business internally as part of a transfer, and we were communicating by text. I was in Ibiza, you were in Cornwall.
Yeah, the weather was quite different in those two places.
We're both looking on a beach.
Yeah.
And you know, and we got this thing done between us on a Sunday afternoon, and then we shared a glass of the wine that I was having, and Rachel was having afterwards as a celebration. So it's just that availability. It's just works.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So it sounds a bit like life before Rachel and life after Rachel. I was going to talk to you a bit about life before a fractional legal counsel, and how did you resource your kind of legal stuff, if you like, you know, the total stuff that comes across your desk, falls into the legal.
Before Rachel, it's almost like biblical, isn't it? BR, before Rachel, was outsourced through to our lawyers in Lichfield on a retention basis, but again, they weren't practical. They didn't understand the business, whereas Rachel understood our business and has made a much bigger impact because of that. So our external lawyers, very good at being solicitors as such, but not in terms of legal counsel, because they didn't understand the business or the practicalities, so could almost send us down a path that I had to back off on putting that practical application into. Whereas now, that's already been taken care of with Rachel. And now we're not having that retainer with the external sisters. We're having Rachel instead, full on. There's no external anymore. So going after, so then now she's embedded into the business. It's just a natural conversation about many different topics that Rachel have a practical answer to me.
Yeah, and I suppose coming on from that,
it's the big difference then. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say it's coming. I was just going to say, for me, I think it's because Paul, as you can hear, a typical day for Paul is he is running around everywhere. The fact that we've got him on a webinar today for this time is an actual miracle in itself, because he spends so much time driving around. He's at customer sites, various different locations, does a lot of stuff from the car, numerous things in a day. And I think fundamentally trying to be there for him, if I can get 5 minutes of Paul's time to be able to do the top issues in 5 minutes, whereas I think before there was so much, I tried to take out so much of the noise for him, so I can go, these are the top 3 issues, Paul, this is my recommendation, this is what I think we should do, are you happy? Yes, let's go. Try to take that noise out so he doesn't have to get into the weeds of some of the things, so he can actually concentrate his time on the strategic stuff that matters, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. That is it. Simplify it, speed up the process for decision, and know that it's all being taken care of. And that's the other thing that Rachel can do. She just translates it into normal everyday conversational language, and that makes it far simpler than talking to an external solicitor who's going to try and wrap me up with legal jargon. I just need to know what it means in English, and that's where it's at. So AR after Rachel. That's what's happening.
Going to start using that now.
Yeah, exactly. I would do that if I were you. I was, Rachel, from your perspective, what did, when you kind of landed and sort of joined Paul's team, before you kind of got stuck in, what were you noticing about the pressure that Paul was under?
Well, mainly I think Paul said it himself very articulately, which is he just wore so many hats. He was everything to everyone. I mean, arguably he still is everything to everyone to an extent. And I think, as he said, the business has grown, but trying to kind of be accountable for all those things and be accountable for kind of, to be honest, quite technical legal areas, like GDPR and company law and unemployment law, and I know Paul has actually done a law degree, but he is a finance director. He's not a lawyer. And I think there was an expectation that Paul would do all things law. And that, that is a huge challenge in a role, isn't it? And I think to just any kind of pressure that I could take out of that, I just thought there was so much firefighting going on and so much people demanding of his time that if I was able to kind of cut that down and allow him to focus, that's only got to be a good thing.
Yeah, it sounds like you had exactly that impact. So that's really great to hear. You referred to being involved in some big tenders, and it looks like that's the kind of trajectory that the business has followed that's kind of led to this significant growth. What has kind of happened practically within the business when you started to diversify and become involved in big tenders? Did that have a big impact, Paul, on the pressures of your role and the stuff you need to get involved in? And did that tie in with Rachel coming in?
Yeah, because if you're operating, so up at whatever it's up at 120% of capacity, 150% sometimes in terms of the day to day, then adding in the tender support as well means that you still need more horsepower to get the work done and the day to day and to do the tender management as well. So actually, Rachel coming in to support that is taking out some of that need and even things out a little bit. So yeah, it's hugely important.
And from a business point of view, Paul, what kind of practical pressures did the business, during that growth trajectory, what were the pressures that the business were facing?
Yeah.
Was it people pressures, supplier pressures, cash flow pressures? How has that kind of range of risks and pressures kind of changed over that period of time?
Well, it's just but those pressures still remain in terms of our growing business. And if we think about where we've come from, and doubling overnight pretty much is quite a tall order because there's funding issues to make sure we have the working capital. There's process issues. There's compliance issues. We almost caught behind ourselves because we weren't expecting to win this business and this hugeness of it by doubling ourselves overnight. So now we're catching ourselves up, and then we went through a process of catching ourselves up and then trying to get ahead of it. And that's the point. It was almost a surprise to us that we were going to win it, so we had to chase. Right. And that's where Rachel came in and alleviate some of those growing pains, if you like, that we would have not been operating at. We were already on a growth plan, but we wouldn't have done these things as fast as we would have done because necessity breeds the invention, and that's what we needed to do, get on top of it.
So what were the kinds of things in the tender process that were the legal challenges that Rachel was working on that kind of really supported you? What things, from a practical point of view?
Yeah, the commercials, the KPIs that are needed for the customer, the liability, that's huge for us in terms of what that looked like. So all of that, the consequential losses that might have come if we were to sign up to some of these terms and conditions, the actual, what are we signing ourselves up for? How can we get out of things if we want to get out of them? What that cover? They're the key things, really, the liability, the KPIs and the exit arrangements and continuation arrangements that Rachel would just jump into and give us it in plain language. And we call it a Rachel table, where we ask for a Rachel table, and then we're all good because we can see this complicated.
Oh, I need to know about that.
Oh, honestly, when you just get a lawyer's letter, a contract, and it'll all have square boxes and more red and blue and more comments, and we're like, before, and we were like, God, I'm like, oh, please give me something straightforward and simple. So Rachel then gave us what we call a Rachel table, which is all the key points put in an order of priority and an order of importance and risk, rag rated in plain English. And then we are like, oh, great. So we only work in Rachel tables now. And then Rachel deals with all the other official stuff. And then we have to send it to the customer. But we rely on Rachel tables.
Yeah.
Oh, a Rachel table sounds like an absolute blessing for a business leader. We should replicate that in as many places as possible.
In life, generally, I think in life we need a Rachel table. Generally, yes, I'm thinking about opening it up to my personal life.
I think correspondence from the school should come in Rachel tables as well. I do.
Oh, I would like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, Rachel, about how you kind of translate legal risk into something that the business can use, and it sounds like via a Rachel table. Can you tell us a little bit about how you do that, and also why that lands differently, maybe for you, Paul, to what you're used to getting from private practice solicitors?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in this particular tender, all the tenders I've worked on with Paul, actually, the documents tend to be quite lengthy. That's not uncommon. There's a lot of long documents and long contracts, and they can be quite complex and quite weighty, basically. And to kind of break that all down into a really simple, short document that can be digested by Paul and James, the CEO, in at speed, with really clear risks and recommendations on it, with, like Paul said, like a really clear red, amber, green rating, which is like green, go, amber, let's talk about it, red, let's pause, how can we solve it? Because that's the other thing as well. It's not like red, oh, absolutely, we can't do this, this is awful, we can't go forward. It's like, okay, red means let's pause, let's talk. What solutions can we think of? What can we mitigate internally? What procedures can we put in place? Do we even need to take this back to, the potential customer? And then what comes out in the wash of that after a conversation is your top 3 to 5 things the business really cares about. And then how do we then solve those? And then turning that itself into, I think what we did, Paul, for the customer was, it was like a 1-pager. These are our top 3 things, top 3 to 5 things. Let's have a conversation. Yeah. How can we work with you to solve them? What it wasn't was a 80 to 100-page contract redlined with loads of legal comments that the customer would be like, well, we don't want to look at that. We can't talk to you. It's too hard. The aim was to try and be like as constructive and open and as commercial from day one. So they were like, this is what Rudolph and Hellman are. This is what it would be to work with them. Yeah. So that was sort of the aim. And it did work.
I mean, it's definitely worked. It's definitely helped us competitively, because we know that when we were talking to our customer, even the most detailed request or most onerous request, we didn't say no to straight away. We didn't have that black and white, yes, no, cross out, cross, no, all these big words. Nothing was inflamed. Everything was, well, let's have a conversation about this. And so take away all the square brackets and all of the line by line review, and put it into a positive framework that says, okay, this is quite a big issue to us. Can we work together to find the solution? And this one, and this one. And we do it in a top 3. And then we'd have some down. These were the 3 points that we felt we'd have a proper conversation about. And then they were underneath one. Well, yeah, we agreed to these other top 5 points. So then when the customer receives it, they too are saying, okay, these guys aren't in any sort of back and forward yes and no game. This is in how can we make it work together game. There's no doubt about that. So successful to the contracts we won since Rachel's been, for sure.
That's amazing. Yeah. It sounds like it sort of aligns to, if your brand as a business is, we are easy to do business with. We're commercial players. We're easy to do business. This is a collaboration. Yeah, it sounds like that's really supported that kind of relationship build with a new customer, which is something I don't think people think of legal.
Yeah, and then it meshes with us as a business in terms of about our culture and how we are. And we'll go to tenders for certain companies, and we'll sit around the table and they'll say, okay, well, that's really, really good. We really like this, but who's going to be implementing it? And we'll say, well, we are, which is different perhaps to other companies that sends the sales teams in. And that's not the case. And so also, they know, similarly to a contract that we're involved in at the moment, where we had a meeting last week, and Rachel came with us as well. Around the people around the table were the people that are going to do the job, so they know straight away who they're going to lean into, and that's us. We'll try to be straightforward, which we think we are, and try just to be normal, and that's what Rachel can bring some normality to the whole complicated legal structure, be it commercial or contractual.
That's brilliant. That's so good to hear. And it sounds like when you were telling us about what's on your desk and what are you facing into in your role, there are a lot of people that you mentioned, hundreds. If you take into account your agency people as well as your kind of employed people. Was people issues something that was taking up a lot of your time? Is that something that's kind of one of the big ones on your desk?
Yeah, fortunately we do have some good HR professionals in support to help us some of the way, but there's always a gap, a skills gap between what we're able to employ our team and what's needed for the business, because in the growing business you need more and more, and there's more and more issues that come through from the employment side of things. So what that is also able to say is that me not being completely distracted into the weeds of the individual case that might need some help, Rachel can get involved in that directly and take some heat away before I even need to look at it or think about it.
Right, so it's a practical thing of kind of getting time back.
Yeah, which I can give elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless someone takes it off me.
So, Rachel, how did you, on a practical level, kind of help to do that filtering exercise of creating the prioritisation of what needed to go in front of Paul and what didn't, to be able to give him that time back?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important, and I say this a lot, that Rudolph and Hellman is a people business at the end of the day. It's about the people, and people are like front and centre and a massive consideration in everything that it does. And obviously with the win of the big contract, that was a lot of people that were transferring in at that time. And I think that for the HR team, that was, a huge sort of undertaking. So for me, it was to kind of be the first sort of point of contact for the head of HR. So the head of HR reports into Paul. And to basically be able to support the head of HR as a first point of call with a legal question or a challenge or something that she wanted to just talk through, rather than before she would have gone to Paul, and that would have taken a lot of Paul's time. So to be able to do that for her on legal issues, and then be able to reframe that back to her and say, let's think about the wider business, let's think about the legal and financial and operational risk here, not just the HR people piece, but these other pieces of the puzzle, which Paul would have done before. And then sort of clarified ownership of, okay, so who owns what action? What can we do now? What can we do? I can do, you can do, Ops can do before we get to Paul, because we know that Paul's going to be like, what actions have happened, because, he's actions orientated and he wants a solution. So what can we do now? And before we even escalate that to Paul. So then actually the escalation to Paul becomes the really key, the real tricky pieces, the real tricky cases that Paul then can give a view on. So again, it's escalating less stuff to him and try to make, support HR to think about what really needs to go to Paul. So again, he can focus on the stuff that matters. I think it's, you're probably sensing a theme. I feel like I'm maybe being repetitive here, but it's just giving that time back to the stuff that matters. Sorry if that's repetitive again.
No, I think it's an important theme. I think if you're the finance leader of a business, there's probably not much that's more important than trying to get that time back to focus on the things that really matter. Paul, is that a correct assessment?
Oh, always. Yeah, completely. If I think about where we were before and I think where we are now, we couldn't be without Rachel. There's no way now. She's in too deep. And that's great. That's great. It really is. And so, lots of positives.
It sounds like one of the kind of tools in your armory, Rachel, is using a sort of risk-based approach. So you've talked a lot about prioritization, red, amber, green, kind of deciding what needs to be escalated and what doesn't need to be escalated. Paul, what do you think is, how would you describe that difference in approach between how you as a business were handling risk before Rachel and how you look at risk, as a whole now? Has Rachel coming in made a difference to that?
Yeah, it's more structured now, Sarah, certainly, in terms of where it was. It was already risk management is something we still continue to do in every minute of every day. As the back brain then comes forward and goes back out again, it's always there, isn't it? It's always there. But the difference is with Rachel's put some structure into it and identified areas that we really can get to grasp now that we just didn't have that bandwidth to support and just structure it. So yeah, it's certainly in the compliance. So there's always, so Rachel always say to us, where we'll have a day's book, which is, it's not really days, it's, as I said, it's hours as we go, whenever we need them. But they can move around according to what's happening. So there'll be a piece of work that's been started. Maybe it's on GDPR, maybe it's on some other policies, maybe it's on supplier assessments, and that can roll in the background, and that will start to gather pace. Then there'll be an instance where in the middle of all of that, there'll be a tender that's going on that needs some horsepower into it, quite a bit of it on that day. So now we have to react. We then say, Rachel, can you do this please first? And then it rebalances itself again at the end of the month. So that's and if it was risk particularly, that risk management program's already embedded in. We know what we're going to do to lower our risk of policies and of compliance, generally regulatory stuff. We know what we're going to do this year on that. That's already been set out. So you feel more comfortable in the risk management of the organisation on that level because it's already 10 out. Now, as before, we were just going to do it as we go. And because we're so focused on profit and our people, then those two things, that our people are our biggest point. We don't have loads of assets in physical assets. We have our assets in our people. The Rudolph and Hellman way has successfully driven us to be where we are 25 years on from before. So we'll always put our people first. We always then have to deliver for shareholders. But now, with a risk program that's already been set for the year ahead, we know that baseline is in there already, rather than getting to sort of the middle of the year and go, right, well, we've done this, have we done this? No, it just moves along all the time now to a progression.
You've talked quite a bit about confidence and the fact that this kind of brought confidence to customer negotiations, and this has given you confidence in articulating risks to shareholders and things like that. Would you say that that is one of the biggest outcomes of the model, that feeling of confidence?
I think it was confidence was always in there anyway. Until we just got it, we always had it done. It's just been helped to be done in a way, as I said at the front of the call, for me to know it's not just me remembering. I think that's the point.
Yeah.
We'd always
it's not all sitting
done,
on your
it's
shoulders.
It's more pleasurable when someone else is working with you as well, and that's the thing, and that's what's come out of it. So it's you could just simplify it really simply. Rachel just helps us run our business in a successful way, and is there all the time in a way that meshes with how we operate, how we think, and the energy we have to go forward, and she matches it all the way. That's it.
That's amazing.
Highly competent way.
And if you were,
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it sounds like it. It sounds. I want a Rachel table presented to me. If you were chatting to another FD in the pub, Paul, and you were trying to explain what it feels like to have engaged a fractional legal counsel, what would you say to them?
I don't think I'd be talking about that in the pub. I'd probably talk about less or whose rounders it is. But anyway, should that topic come up, then obviously I'd recommend that approach. And certainly, look, we all know FD's jobs are thankfully wider than they ever were before. Thank goodness for that, because Rachel knows this. I've always had a side hustle, always throughout my career, even whatever else it's been, and finance, always, because that's what drives me. That's what makes it work for me. That's what brings it all alive. And so, the ever more bigger the job is, then you're going to need some helpers, trusty helpers, to help you through it. So I'd always recommend that the in-house counsel going forward, absolutely. And the fractional piece, it works as well. So we get absolute value when we need it, and then it's just far better than the way we operated before. It's real.
That is so good to hear. And if this sounds familiar to those of you who are listening and you'd like to explore fractional legal and see how you can regain control without adding to that complexity that we've talked about quite a lot today, we'd love to continue the conversation. So let us know and we will follow up with you afterwards.